Hi everybody, time for chapter 6 from the Dear Old Briar Patch. And let's see, first of all, hello to Jackson, Matthew, Marjorie, Emma, Amelia, and Emma, all in Maine, Amelia and Lucas in Missouri, to Kai Ming and Rukai in Washington State, to Hope here in Maine, Dylan in Maine, Lucas in Maine, our friends Leslie and Mary way over in England. Hello to Ezzy and Indy in Oklahoma, Kayla here in Maine. Let's see now, Sylvia, Macy and Lillian in Maine, Hopper and Judson in Maine, Caden and Xander here in Maine, Evangeline and Isaac up in Rhode Island, to Mabel in the country of China. Hello to Oliver, Madeline and Wyatt way out west, and to Alex here in Maine up in Passadumkeag along the Penobscot. Okay. Now, chapter 6. And there's a picture, looks like Blackie the Crow flying, okay? Yeah, I'm quite sure that's Blackie the Crow. Huh. Was Mrs. Peter crazy? That's the title of the chapter. Now, things not understood, you'll find, often quite upset the mind. That's from old Mother Nature. In their snug nest, in the tall grass out on the green meadows, 6 wee baby rabbits cuddled together under the blanket of grass and fur Mother had made for them. These were anxious days and happy nights for Mrs. Peter. She did not dare visit her babies in daylight, lest she be seen and her precious secret discovered. But just as soon as the black shadows, creeping out from the purple hills, drew a curtain of soft dusk over the green meadows, she would cautiously slip over there. Lying partly under that blanket, she nursed the babies, and in the joy of mother love, she forgot the worries that had beset her all long day when she could not be with them. When she couldn't be with them, they never for an instant were out of her mind. From the edge of the old briar patch, she kept watch all day long. Peter used to wonder why she had become so fond of that particular place where she was likely to be seen by anyone passing near. Then one morning, something happened that made him wonder if Mrs. Peter had suddenly gone crazy. For a long time, she had sat quietly in her now favorite place, looking out over the green meadows. Suddenly she sat up. Then for an instant stood up on her hind feet that she might see better. An anxious look grew in her soft eyes. Peter looked in the direction she was looking. A small dog was running this way and that, and gradually coming their way. It was Flip the Terrier from Farmer Brown's. It's only that pesky old dog, a nuisance, but no one to be afraid of as long as we stay in the old briar patch, my dear, said Peter. Probably he'll poke his nose in here and there and get it scratched. But if he doesn't see us, he'll soon go off. Come on back out of his sight. He turned to lead the way. When he looked back, Mrs. Peter hadn't moved. He'll see you there. What are you waiting for? Said he rather crossly. Little Mrs. Peter said nothing, but continued to sit right where she was. When at last she did move, it wasn't to follow Peter to the middle of the old briar patch. No, sir, it wasn't in that direction, but right out in the open. There she once more sat up. Are you crazy? Cried Peter sharply. That dog will see you, and then he will give us no peace. Still, Mrs. Peter said nothing. Nor did she move. She was intently watching Flip as he ran this way and that, looking for someone to chase. It wasn't until he began running toward that hidden nursery that Mrs. Peter moved, and then she moved quickly. With a bound, she was away, lippity-lippity-lip, running straight toward Flip. Now Peter knew she was crazy. It seemed to him that as she ran, Mrs. Peter made higher jumps than usual. She seemed to be trying her best to make Flip see her. Presently he did, and with a yelp of joyful excitement, headed for her. And how he did run! Mrs. Peter turned, not straight toward the old briar patch, but as if to go around it. She was running fast, but Flip was running faster. Now he was almost at her heels. It looked as if in the next jump he would catch her. For just a second, Peter closed his eyes. He opened them just in time to see Flip almost turn a somersault in his effort to stop and turn. Mrs. Peter had dodged as only a rabbit can, and once more had a good lead. Was Flip discouraged? Not in the least. This was exciting. It was fun. Away he raced after her. Soon he was at her heels again. Once more she dodged. This time Flip did not overrun as much as before, so Mrs. Peter did not gain so good a lead. Peter, watching helplessly, for there was no chance for him to aid her, was badly upset. Great fear that Flip would catch Mrs. Peter, mingled with resentment that she should have gotten herself in such danger. I had never known her to do such a crazy thing before, he muttered. Hope she is getting the fright of her life. It serves her right. She went right out to meet that pesky dog and invited him to chase her. Even if she gets safely back here, that dog will give us no peace for the rest of the morning. Why did she do such a foolish, stupid thing? Oh! Mrs. Peter had just dodged again, and Flip, being ready for it, had turned almost as quickly, so that almost at once Mrs. Peter was forced to dodge once more. Peter could see that she was getting tired, but Flip seemed as fresh as ever. They disappeared around the end of the old briar patch. Why had Mrs. Peter gone way around there when with a short dash she could have reached the old briar patch? Certainly she must be crazy. Before he could get through to the other side, he heard Flip whining, with now and then a sharp yelp. He knew what that meant. Mrs. Peter was safe in the old briar patch, and Flip was getting well scratched as he vainly tried to follow her. He found Mrs. Peter stretched out under a thick bramble tangle, panting and so tired she could hardly move. He was relieved to find her safe. Of course. At the same time, he was provoked by the seeming foolishness of what she had done and the fright she had given him, so he began to scold. Are you crazy? He demanded. Why did you go out like that when you saw that dog? And why were you so stupid as to run way around to this side of the old briar patch? Did you lose your head? Now that dog will give us no peace until he becomes tired trying to get in here. If you had followed me when I told you, he wouldn't have known whether we were in here or not. Little Mrs. Peter made no reply. She simply lay there and panted. It was a great temptation to tell Peter about those 6 babies under that blanket out there on the green meadows, how the dog was headed straight for them until she drew his attention, and that she had gone around the end of the old briar patch to get him on the side farthest from those babies. But she didn't. That nursery was still her precious secret. If Peter thought she was crazy, he would have to continue to think so. Poor Peter, he wouldn't understand. If I should tell him that I made that nest way out there in the open, he would be even more certain that I am crazy, thought she. Each day brought her new worries, but also new proof that she had chosen the safest place for her babies, because no one looked for them there. Once she saw Blackie the Crow fly right over that nursery, her heart thumping with fear and anxiety. Remember the picture at the beginning of the chapter? Blackie was flying low. She knew that there were no keener eyes than his. This is the first real test of her judgment in making that nest right out in the open. Blackie saw nothing to interest him and continued on his way. Mrs. Peter sighed with relief. She knew that from now on she would worry less. Let's see now. There's another picture of Blackie the Crow flying over the green meadows and looking things over. But apparently he saw nothing to interest him. Good old Blackie the Crow. Now let's see. If that black rascal can fly right over that nest and not notice it, no one will, said she to herself. Of course, had he suspected I might have a nest out there, he might have noticed that little blanket of grass and fur and stopped to investigate. But he wasn't looking for a rabbit nursery out there, and so he didn't see it. Now I am more than ever sure that no one else will. The very next day, she watched Redtail the Hawk circling high overhead, and she well knew what wonderful eyes he has. Even from way up there, they could see a mouse hiding in the grass. Round and round he sailed, looking down. He must have seen that blanket covering those babies, but it meant nothing more than a little patch of dry grass, such as he frequently saw. Mrs. Peter could have hugged herself for joy. All day, every day, she ate to be with her babies, but she kept away from them. There were too many watchful eyes that might see her if she went to them. She knew that under their blanket of grass and fur, cuddled together, they were warm and comfortable, and probably asleep most of the time. But just as soon as round, red Mr. Sun went to bed behind the purple hills, and the first of the black shadows reached the old briar patch, she waited only until Peter was off on one of his nightly rambles before starting for that nursery. Even then she didn't go straight to it. She hopped this way and that, sat up to look and listen, took a few bites from a patch of clover, then moved on to another. She went completely around that nest before going close to it. Beside it, she once more sat up to look and listen. All being well, she lay down under the edge of the blanket and nursed the babies. She lay there until their hunger was satisfied, then went for her own dinner. Several times in the night she returned to them, always in that careful manner. Do you suppose Peter would have still thought she was her crazy had he seen her? As she lay there with her 6 wee bunnies, she was anxious, as all mothers are anxious, but oh so happy. And that's the end of that chapter. Chapter 7 will be next. Okay, bye-bye everybody.